We are the operating system of the digital economy. We don't only need to make the transaction happen, we need to make it happen in a safe way.
How do you think about creating something new versus constantly shoring up the ecosystem?
If you look at the history of innovation in payments, we used to swipe. Nobody's swiping any longer. So you have to look ahead and say, what's around the next corner? Where's the next piece of technology?
Welcome to This Is Working, where leaders share their strategies for success and the lessons that shape them. In today's interconnected financial ecosystem, success isn't just about your own company. It's about creating value through strategic partnerships and serving as the trusted intermediary that keeps commerce flowing. Few understand this better than Michael Miebach, the CEO of Mastercard. No longer just a credit card company, they are pioneering payment innovation while processing a mind-boggling $9.8 trillion in transactions last year alone. Michael, welcome to This Is Working.
Hello, Dan. Happy to be here. Perfect introduction.
Thank you very much. Did I do okay with your last name? I was like, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right.
It was close enough.
Close?
Yeah, I would say Miebach.
Miebach.
Yeah.
Okay. Michael Miebach, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
Can you just start with an understanding of what Mastercard is?
Yeah, so we are a very large payments technology company. So payments in today's digital world, it's all technology-based. We power the technology behind it. We connect the different parties in the payment ecosystem. If you go in a store today, the store has a cash register. It has a system where all of their the goods are managed and all of that. And somewhere at the end, you go and you pay for it and you walk out with that. So what happens behind that store is there's a bank, and there's a bank that links to your bank and that issues your card. All of these people need to be put together. This transaction needs to flow. It's very complex. It happens across borders. It happens across 200 countries in the world. We are the operating system of the digital economy. So we make it all happen. In today's digital lives, more and more happens online. And the fraudsters come online as well. Mm-hmm. So we don't only need to make the transaction happen, we need to make it happen in a safe way so that we are all protected when we transact on the net, in the shop, or wherever. So that's what we do. We're a large payment technology company, but with a very big consumer brand as well, and with the biggest global reach there is.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people just think about the consumer brand, not understanding that is just the tip of this massive iceberg that is operating beneath. You talk about being the operating system for the financial world. How do you make decisions about what to build or what your strategies are going to be when so many companies are relying on you? You have to be open to all of these partners. How do you even set strategies and understand what to build in that kind of a system?
Well, you look at the overall digital economy to start with and see what are people trying to do, paying for goods and services. That applies for businesses, is for consumers. There are all these participants in the digital economy that I just talked about. And what are the common needs? Common needs is connectivity. So it's a globally connected digital economy. Different countries have different standards. Mm-hmm. So if you want to make transactions flow across borders, you got to create common standards. So that's where we start and say, what are the commonalities? If you're truly global companies, you see what works in this country, what works in that country, what that government wants, what this regulation is. What is the standard that cuts across? So that's the first thing that we do. The second thing then is not everybody has the same needs. We deal with large banks, we deal with small banks as customers, we deal with large merchants, be a very large retailer, for example. Right. At the same time, we deal with small business in Michigan. So all of those are people that use our services in the end. So what, again, is the commonality? The commonality is safety and security. Everybody wants that the transaction is protected, the data behind it is protected, so we make that happen as well. So we do data insights, we do safety and security, we do global standards. And with that, we are not very visible because we just make it happen as the operating system of the digital economy.
Exactly. A lot of times I have people on the show who can really dictate their own. They are deciding what their roadmap looks like because it is the CEO of Ralph Lauren and he's like, this is what we're going to roll out in the next year. Mm-hmm. What you just described and how your business works sounds like a million partners with a million different needs all coming to you and saying, you have to work in my country. You've got to deal with my problem. Can you talk about what it's like to operate a company that has so many inputs and so many asks coming in?
Mm-hmm. In the end, there is similarity. So everybody is in their own context. A country will look for its own needs wherever they are. Are they a developed economy? Are they a developing economy? If it's a business, if you're a retailer, you don't think about payments. You think about selling more to your customers. If you're a consumer, you want to have personalized offers and you want your payment to be easy. You don't wake up in the morning and say, oh, I'm thinking about a payment. So they're all kind of different needs in a way. But if you distill it down, it's about payments that are easy, frictionless, and safe. And that matters to everybody at all times. And then there's different tools and techniques for us to make that happen. In a developing economy, you need to use different tools than in a developed economy. Like in the United States, the payment ecosystem is very mature. There's a lot of legacy technology, and you got to engage with that in one way. If you're in Africa, it's all mobile-based. It's a very different engagement. But fundamentally, safety and security solutions, they matter across the board. That is part of our strategy. Data insights, leveraging the overall non-personalized payment data that's out there to put it to use for governments or businesses to run their business in a more effective fashion. That's a common use. And providing payment choice, that's also a common use across the board, because a credit card isn't everybody's answer. It's not also our answer despite our name. It could be a debit card. It could be an account-to-account payment. It could be a stable coin. It could be anything. So those basic choices are very common in the digital economy, regardless of what stage it is and who the participant is. And that's what we serve. And there are very few companies who do that. And that is our strategy and our focus.
So everyone feels like all your customers, they all think they have their own problems, their own things they're trying to solve. And as they come into you, you're like, oh, we're pattern matching. What you're asking for is sort of the same thing that 1,000 other people or 20 other countries are all trying to accomplish as well. And you can sort of set a roadmap.
In many ways, that is true. But also, the ecosystem evolves. And for an evolving ecosystem, what is the next solution?
Yeah.
So take a very large online marketplace. They might have an evolving need that nobody else had before. And we're going to co-create and say, where do we take it? If you look at the history of innovation in payments, we used to swipe. Nobody's swiping any longer. Then it was, tab, and you were tapping, or you was, sticking it into the reader. Today, it's tokenization. That technology wasn't there before. That is a common need today because everybody wants tokenization, where your data is all masked and it's not out in the open. So it keeps evolving. So it's not only about finding common needs. You also have to look ahead and say, what's around the next corner? Where's the next piece of technology? We have a live conversation in the US right now, or actually globally. How do we use blockchain technology in a different way? And that can revolutionize the payment industry, and we're going to be ahead of that.
Can you talk about how you do this kind of co-creation, how you manage that internally at your company? Is this the kind of thing where you have a certain percent of your time is spent coming up with innovative solutions with partners? Is it that everyone is doing this all the time? I mean,
right.
How do you think about creating something new versus constantly shoring up the ecosystem?
Right. If you look at innovation, that is everybody's job at Mastercard. So that's the first thing. So that's important. But clearly, there are differences in roles around the company. There is focus of some teams into today's solutions. What do my customer need today? And we got to deliver against that. At the same time, we have teams in the product world that think ahead, what's the next solution? And then there are people that look around two corners and think about fundamental technology innovation that might inform the product and might inform today's solution. So that's organizationally spread across the company. We have a labs unit. They really think far out. They don't have a revenue budget. The only task they have is innovate. Do R&D, basic R&D, and figure out what is the next piece of technology. Our product teams, they think 3 years ahead and have a roadmap that we can share with our customers. And then if you're facing off against the customer, you basically use today's product platforms. You still innovate because you put them together like Lego blocks in different ways because this customer needs a slightly different solution. So you combine 2 or 3 things that we have today, all different forms of innovation. As I said before, we've set different standards along the way. We came up with the magstripe. We came up with EMV. We came up with tokenization, which is the current leading technology in payments. So it proves that if you create room and space for innovation in a company, it will continue to come. But it's also pretty clear we don't have all of the answers. I mean, we're not running around. We're going to know exactly where it's going. So what do we do about that? We go and we lean in with VCs, with PEs. Where's smart money going? We partner with all the emerging payment players. Today, we have about 70-80% market share with the neobanks and the fintechs around the world because we basically say, come on in, innovate on our platform. We give you global reach into interoperability, but you can put your solution on top to create a better consumer interface and a consumer solution. So then we learn a lot from that. We say, okay, this is where the train is going, and we're going to be on that train.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think that being open to working with the world's biggest banks and countries, as well as being open to fintech and saying, you can build on top of us,
right,
must give you a real insight into what's coming next. I've heard you talk about how you got into the buy now, pay later space. And it sounds like this was sort of an area where you were initially thinking this isn't for us.
Right.
And then you kind of had a...
Not true.
No,
that's not true.
So you knew from the beginning this was like, oh, this is for us, and now we need to get into it.
No. Our fundamental insight is people will need to have choice in payment. So whatever is relevant, whatever suits their needs, we need to be able to offer that. So there used to be a time when we said cards is the answer to everything. Well, at that time, it probably was, but that's not the case any longer. You look at real-time payment systems, you look at all the choices that are there today. Different countries have their local solutions and so forth. So we would never say, we know exactly what's going to work or not. Mm-hmm. So if it becomes a relevant choice, then we will offer it. Now, buy now, pay later, I think 2022, 2023 or about, it was really ramping up. This is clearly a solution that was in demand. People were saying, hey, you know what? I can manage my financials better if I have, take a few individual loans instead of managing a credit card bill. So that was the logic at the time. And we said, all right, so let's lean in and see how would we make that available. We have global reach.
I just want to make it clear. So you saw this happening and you said, there was no, this is an existential moment for us, or is this a problem for MasterCard? It was from the start, we should probably be in this business.
It's relevant, hence we should be in this business because it's all about payment choice.
Okay.
So how are you, though, in this business? Because we're not going to go one-to-one to a large merchant and say, we're going to offer you a buy now, pay later program. That's just not what we do. We're relatively small employee footprint globally. And fintechs who specifically were founded to go directly in a bilateral fashion to a Walmart, other large retailers, they were growing their business like that. We said, why don't we build this capability into our network? And we build it in a network, buy now, pay later, as an option. We invite banks or lenders to use that functionality. And it's exactly what we did. And the rest is history.
Thanks, everyone, for joining. We will return in a few weeks for the second half of my conversation with Mastercard CEO Michael Miebach. Till then, be well and stay curious.